I'm Charlotte, 26. A drawer and my world shattered one afternoon in our Louisville home. My brother stormed in, eyes blazing, demanding I fork over $15 for a shiny Rolex to flaunt his so-called status. I flat out refused. Why should I bankroll his vanity? That's when he snatched a glass of water and hurled it at my face, the icy splash hitting me like a slap as my parents just stood there. They didn't blink, telling me to stop being selfish and support my brother's big career moment. The sting of their words hurt worse than the water dripping down my chin. I was done being their doormat. My brother thought he could bully me into submission, but he didn't know I held a secret that would turn his world upside down. See, my boyfriend is someone he answers to. And at a fancy event at the Oak Room, I was ready to make him regret ever crossing me. What happened there left everyone stunned, especially him. Want to see how I made my brother eat his words? Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and stay tuned for the drama that flipped everything. Looking back, my childhood felt like a different world. Growing up in our Louisville home, a cozy two-story house with a sprawling backyard, my brother and I were inseparable. Justin, 2 years older, was my partner in crime. We'd spend summer afternoons racing bikes down the cul-de-sac, laughing as we dodged sprinklers or building forts out of old blankets in the living room. My mother would bake cookies, her apron dusted with flour, calling us in with a warm smile. "Andrea, Justin, don't break anything," she'd say, her voice playful. My father would join us after work, tossing a football or teaching us how to grill burgers on the patio. Those evenings were filled with chatter and warmth. The four of us huddled around the dinner table, sharing stories about school or the neighbor's dog. I felt like I belonged, like we were a team. As we got older, things shifted. By the time I was 12, I noticed my parents' attention drifting toward Justin. He'd always been the louder one, the kid who charmed teachers and won soccer trophies. My mother started hanging his awards on the fridge, while my drawings or report cards got a quick "nice job, Andrea" before being tucked away. My father began taking Justin to baseball games, just the two of them, saying he needs this for his future. I'd sit at home flipping through books, wondering why my future didn't seem to matter as much. At first I brushed it off, thinking it was because he was older, but the pattern grew clearer. When Justin got a new bike for his birthday, I got a second-hand one. When he wanted new sneakers, Mom would drop everything to drive him to the mall. My requests, they'd say, "We'll see, Andrea," and nothing would happen. By high school, the gap widened. Justin was the star captain of the debate team, always talking about his big plans for a corporate job. My parents ate it up. "Your brother's going places." My mother would say, her eyes shining with pride. "You should be more like him." I'd nod, swallowing the hurt, but it stung. I was working hard too, designing posters for school events, earning decent grades. But it was like I was invisible. Once I overheard my father telling a neighbor Justin's our ticket to something big. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart sinking. What was I then? Just the backup. I started spending more time in my room sketching or listening to music, trying to drown out the feeling of being left behind. The summer before college, things hit a breaking point. Justin got accepted to a fancy business program, and my parents threw a huge party inviting half the neighborhood. They beamed as he gave a speech about his ambitions, their applause echoing through the backyard. I'd gotten into a solid art school, but when I mentioned it, my mother just said, "That's nice, dear," and changed the subject. Later, I found Justin's old report cards on the kitchen counter marked with stars and praise, while mine were buried in a drawer. I confronted my father one night, my voice shaking. "Dad, why is it always about Justin?" He sighed, looking tired. "He's got big dreams, Andrea. We're just helping him get there." I walked away, my chest tight, realizing I'd never be their priority. That distance grew as we became adults. Justin moved back home after college, landing a marketing job, and my parents treated him like a king. I'd visit from my apartment downtown, hoping for a glimpse of the warmth we'd had as kids, but it was gone. They'd ask about Justin's work, his goals, barely noticing my own life as a freelance designer. I stopped trying to compete for their attention, but the ache lingered. I loved them, but I was tired of being the afterthought. Those childhood memories of bike races and family dinners felt like a dream that didn't belong to me anymore until last night. The next morning, my face still burned from the humiliation. I stood in the kitchen of our Louisville home, gripping a coffee mug, trying to shake off the memory of yesterday. My brother barged in, his swagger, announcing trouble before he even opened his mouth. "Andrea, I need $15,000, he said, leaning against the counter, his voice dripping with entitlement. "There's this Rolex I've got my eye on. It's perfect, screams success. I need it to look the part at work." I stared at him stunned. "Do 15,000 for a watch?" I shook my head. "Justin, I'm not giving you that kind of money. It's ridiculous." His eyes narrowed, and before I could react, he grabbed a glass of water from the sink and flung it at me. The cold liquid hit my face, soaking my shirt, dripping onto the floor. I gasped, blinking through the shock as my mother and father walked in. They saw it all but didn't flinch. My mother crossed her arms, her lips pursed. "Andrea, why do you always have to make things difficult?" she snapped. "Your brother's up for a promotion. He needs to look professional. Stop being so selfish." My father nodded, his tone firm. "He's got a big opportunity, Andrea. Help him out." I wiped the water from my chin, my cheeks burning, not from this splash, but from their betrayal. They didn't care that I was drenched, humiliated in my own home. Justin smirked, folding his arms like he'd won. "You'll regret saying no," he said, his voice low and smug. I clenched my fists, my heart pounding. I wasn't going to let him walk all over me. I retreated to my room, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, my mind racing. Justin thought he could bully me into submission, but he was wrong. I wasn't just going to sit there and take it. I needed to hit back hard. I opened the voice recorder app, testing it with a quick tap. If Justin was going to act like this, I'd make sure he paid for every word. I remembered overhearing him on the phone last week bragging to a friend about how he always got his way in the family. That was my chance. I'd catch him in the act, build a case he couldn't squirm out of. I slipped the phone into my pocket, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about the water or the money anymore. It was about proving I wasn't invisible. That afternoon I heard Justin in the living room, his voice loud and cocky as he talked on the phone. I crept closer, staying out of sight, and hit record.
"Yeah, man.
I told Andrea to cough up the cash for my Rolex," he laughed. "She's too stingy, but I'll get it one way or another. She doesn't get how important this is for my image." My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet, letting the app capture every damning word. He went on mocking me, saying I'd never stand up to him because I was the weak link in the family. Each word fueled my anger but also my determination. I saved the recording, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. This was just the beginning. Justin had no idea what was coming, and I wasn't going to let him or my parents push me around anymore. I'd make sure they all saw me for who I really was. That evening, I sat alone in my room, staring at my phone. My hands were still shaky from the morning's fiasco, but I couldn't let my brother's action slide. I dialed my boyfriend, my heart racing as the call connected. "Hey, honey?" I said, forcing a steady tone when he picked up. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice warm but curious. I hesitated, then lied. "Oh, just a silly argument with my brother, nothing big." I couldn't tell him about the water splashing my face or my parents' betrayal. Not yet. He was out of town on a business trip, and I needed to keep my plan under wraps. If he knew the truth, he might confront my brother, and that would ruin everything. "Miss you," I added, dodging his questions, and we hung up after a quick chat. I leaned back, my mind churning. I had to be smart about this. I grabbed my jacket and headed to a cozy coffee shop in Louisville to meet Chelsea, my best friend since college. The place was buzzing with chatter, but I spotted her in a corner booth waving me over. "Andrea, you look like you've been through it," she said, her eyes narrowing as I slid into the seat. I spilled everything: my brother's demand for 15,000 for a Rolex, the way he'd thrown water at me, and how my parents had taken his side, calling me selfish. "They act like he is the golden child," I said, my voice tight. "He thinks he can bully me into anything." Chelsea's jaw clenched. "That's not okay, Andrea. You can't let him get away with it. You need to hit back hard, get proof. Something he can't deny." Her words lit a fire in me. She was right. I needed evidence to turn the tables. "What if I catch him bragging about it?" I said, pulling out my phone. Chelsea nodded, her expression fierce. "Exactly. He's too cocky to keep quiet. Record him and you'll have him trapped." I felt a spark of hope, my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to be the family's pushover anymore. As we sipped our coffees, I sketched out a plan. My brother was always on his phone boasting to his buddies about his schemes. If I could catch him talking about the Rolex or mocking me, it'd be the perfect weapon for the company event he was so obsessed with. Back at home, I heard his voice from the living room, loud and arrogant as usual. I crept closer, staying out of sight behind the hallway wall. My thumb hovered over the record button. my pulse racing. Yeah man, I told Andrea to hand over the cash for my Rolex, he said, chuckling into his phone. She's too spendless to say no forever. Called her a loser right to her face. She'll cave, trust me. My stomach twisted, but I kept the phone steady, capturing every word. He kept going, laughing about how he'd own the room at the upcoming event with his new watch. She's nothing compared to me, he sneered. I stopped the recording, my hands trembling with anger, but also triumph. This was gold proof of his arrogance and cruelty. I saved the file, naming it Justin's downfall. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was building a case to show everyone who he really was. The company event was my chance, and I was already mapping out every step to make him regret ever crossing me. By midweek, Justin was acting like he already owned the company. I came home to find my bedroom in chaos, drawers, open clothes tossed aside. My brother stood by my nightstand holding the silver watch my boyfriend gave me. His lips curled in a mocking sneer. "This is your prized possession, Andrea," he taunted, dangling it like a toy. Some second-rate trinket. It's pathetic next to the Rolex I'm getting. My chest tightened. That watch was a gift worth more to me than any status symbol he obsessed over. "Put it down, Justin," I said, my voice firm. He tossed it onto the bed, laughing. "You don't deserve this kind of thing," he said. "You're nothing special." His words burned, but I held my ground, refusing to let him see me flinch. He wasn't done. He stepped closer, his eyes cold. "The Oak Room event better go exactly as I want, or I'll tank it and make sure everyone blames you," he hissed. "You do everything I say or you're done." I nodded, my face blank, but inside I was furious, ransacking my room and threatening me. He'd crossed a line. I wasn't going to let him bully me into submission. As he left, I grabbed my phone, my anger fueling my focus. I needed more proof of his arrogance to seal his fate at that event he was so fixated on. I met Chelsea at a diner that afternoon, my hands still shaking from Justin's invasion. He went through my stuff, mocked my watch, and threatened to ruin the event, I said, stirring my coffee. Chelsea leaned forward, her expression sharp. "We've got him, Andrea. Let's make his spotlight moment his worst nightmare." She suggested adding a Q&A session to the event where Justin's overconfidence could trip him up in front of his boss. "Give him a chance to talk too much," she said, grinning. "He'll dig his own grave." I love the idea. It was subtle but perfect. We brainstormed questions that could expose his arrogance, ones I could slip to a colleague to ask during the session. It was a brilliant way to turn his ego against him. That night, I caught Justin on the phone in the backyard, his voice carrying through the open window. I hid near the door, hit record, and listened. "Yeah, I checked Andrea's room," he bragged. "Found some sad little watch she thinks is fancy. Told her I'd wreck her if the event's not perfect. She's just a pawn in my game." My pulse raced, but I stayed silent, letting the app catch every word. He kept going, boasting about how he'd run the show at the Oak Room. I saved the recording as Justin's arrogance, my resolve stronger than ever. I spent the next day finalizing the event details, adding Chelsea's Q&A idea to the program and checking the guest list. Justin thought he was untouchable, but I was setting a trap he'd walk right into. By midweek, Justin was acting like he already owned the company. I came home to find my bedroom in chaos, drawers, open clothes tossed aside. My brother stood by my nightstand holding the silver watch my boyfriend gave me, his lips curled in a mocking sneer. "This is your prized possession, Andrea," he taunted, dangling it like a toy, some second-rate trinket. "It's pathetic next to the Rolex I'm getting." My chest tightened. That watch was a gift worth more to me than any status symbol he obsessed over. "Put it down, Justin," I said, my voice firm. He tossed it onto the bed, laughing. "You don't deserve this kind of thing," he said. "You're nothing special." His words burned, but I held my ground, refusing to let him see me flinch. He wasn't done. He stepped closer, his eyes cold. "The Oak Room event better go exactly as I want, or I'll tank it and make sure everyone blames you," he hissed. "You do everything I say or you're done." I nodded, my face blank, but inside I was furious. Ransacking my room and threatening me he'd crossed a line. I wasn't going to let him bully me into submission. As he left, I grabbed my phone, my anger fueling my focus. I needed more proof of his arrogance to seal his fate at that event he was so fixated on. I met Chelsea at a diner that afternoon, my hands still shaking from Justin's invasion. He went through my stuff, mocked my watch, and threatened to ruin the event, I said, stirring my coffee. Chelsea leaned forward, with her expression sharp. "We've got him, Andrea. Let's make his spotlight moment his worst nightmare." She suggested adding a Q&A session to the event where Justin's overconfidence could trip him up in front of his boss. Give him a chance to talk too much, she said, grinning. He'll dig his own grave. I loved the idea. It was subtle but perfect. We brainstormed questions that could expose his arrogance, ones I could slip to a colleague to ask during the session. It was a brilliant way to turn his ego against him. That night I caught Justin on the phone in the backyard, his voice carrying through the open window. I hid near the door, hit record, and listened. Yeah. I checked Andrea's room, he bragged. Found some sad little watch she thinks is fancy. Told her I'd wreck her if the event's not perfect. She's just a pawn in my game. My pulse raced, but I stayed silent, letting the app catch every word. He kept going, boasting about how he'd run the show at the Oak Room. I saved the recording as Justin's arrogance, my resolve stronger than ever. I spent the next day finalizing the event details, adding Chelsea's Q&A idea to the program, and checking the guest list. Justin thought he was untouchable, but I was setting a trap he'd walk right into. Saturday evening, the Oak Room was buzzing with energy. Chandeliers cast a warm glow over the private dining room where linen-draped tables sparkled with crystal glassware. I stood near the entrance, my navy dress hugging my frame, my heart pounding with anticipation. Eric arrived, his tailored suit crisp, his presence grounding me. "You're radiant, Andrea," he said, his hand brushing mine. Across the room, my brother mingled with colleagues, my silver watch gleaming on his wrist. When he spotted Eric with me, his confident smirk faltered. "Eric's your boyfriend," he whispered, pulling me aside, his voice tight with shock. His eyes flicked to the watch, realization dawning that he'd miscalculated. I met his gaze, calm but unyielding. "Yes, Justin," I said softly. "And you're about to see what happens when you cross me." His face drained of color, but I turned away, ready to take the stage. The event unfolded smoothly. Appetizers served, laughter filling the air. I'd spent weeks planning every detail, from the roasted lamb enter to the sleek projector setup. Colleagues praised the setup, unaware of the storm brewing. During the Q&A session, I stepped to the microphone, on my hands steady despite the adrenaline surging through me. "I'd like to share something important," I announced, my voice clear. I connected my phone to the projector and the room fell silent as Justin's recorded words echoed through the speakers. "She's a loser," he sneered in one clip, followed by "useless, a stepping stone and just a pawn." The final recording revealed him bragging about taking my watch and demanding money for a Rolex to look successful. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Colleagues exchanged stunned glances, their murmurs growing. Eric's face hardened, his disappointment palpable. "That's unacceptable," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. Justin stammered, his charm crumbling, his promotion prospects evaporating before his eyes. My parents, seated near the front, leaped to their feet. "Andrea, this is outrageous," my mother snapped, her face flushed. "You're embarrassing your brother." My father joined in, his voice stern. "He deserves that promotion. Stop this nonsense." Their words stung, echoing years of favoritism that had left me sidelined. I took a deep breath, facing them squarely. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I've put up with your bias my whole life," praising Justin, ignoring me, excusing his cruelty. "I'm done." The room went quiet, the weight of my words settling over everyone. My parents sat down, their protests faltering, unable to counter the truth laid bare. I felt a strange relief, like a chain I'd carried for years had finally snapped. I handed the microphone back, my head high, and walked toward Eric, who gave me a proud nod. As the event ended, colleagues avoided Justin, their whispers following him out the door. Eric pulled me aside, his voice low. "You did the right thing, Andrea. I'm sorry you had to go through this." I squeezed his hand, grateful for his support. That night, I returned home and packed my belongings, my resolve unshaken. I moved into Eric's apartment the next day, a cozy space filled with books and soft light, where we began building a life together. The freedom was exhilarating. No more walking on eggshells, no more living in my brother's shadow. I threw myself into my work, knowing I'd earned my place. Months later, I heard Justin had been demoted to a sales representative role in a small town hours from Louisville. His dreams of corporate success had collapsed, his arrogance costing him everything. He'd moved away, his name barely mentioned among former colleagues. My parents tried calling, leaving voicemails about family unity, but I didn't respond. I'd spent too long seeking their approval, only to be overlooked. Cutting ties wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I found peace in my new life with Eric, our evenings filled with laughter and quiet moments that felt like home. My work flourished and I took on bigger projects, my confidence growing with every success. This journey taught me a vital lesson. Never let injustice silence you. Standing up for yourself, even against family, takes courage, but it's worth it to protect your dignity and carve your own path. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Fight for your worth and build a life that reflects who you are. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for sticking with me to the end. Your support means the world. Please share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in my place? Hit that subscribe button, share this story, and let's keep the conversation going.